Welcome back to Attack 404. In this episode, we're going to take a look at analyzing a phishing email, how we contain a phishing email, and also how we search the environment for indicators of compromise. In the next series, we're going to take a look at doing a deep dive into a phishing email, and then from that, we'll pivot into malware analysis. In this recording, we're going to take a look at what it looks like in Outlook in Windows 10 to do an investigation on an email that you might receive as a SOC analyst. I've put together some information already in a quote-unquote ticket to give you a better idea of what the day in the life of a SOC analyst is and what that looks like in putting together an investigation. Sometimes you'll get an email like this where some of these clowns will tell you that, something is scheduled, $15,000 is being taken out, sometimes it's more, and the shock value might want to make some people click to cancel the transfer. In this case, they're not fooling anyone. So we already have a lab set up where we could analyze the email. I know we've been jumping around. One of the emails was malware. This one is phishing, and another one was phishing as well. So in order to start the investigation properly, in Outlook, you could either right-click and go to View and then show View Message Source. Older versions may have some different ways you could get that information. So I'll go through what the message header looks like and what's included. First, we have the received from, and that's the server that sent the message to our server, and then to the mailbox that they're targeting, which is our inbox, and then from the email address supplied here. So that's the sender of the email. And then there's the subject, and the email follows. Another key component that's very important in emails is the message ID or envelope ID. Proofpoint will use, I believe, it's envelope ID. So normally we will copy this entire segment when we do our investigation. Come on. And we would include this in a ticket similar to this. So we'll say ticket 123 came in, and some of the basic information on who and what the ticket's from. We'll include the email header. We'll highlight again the email source, the recipients, and this may change later on because we'll get to the indexes for Splunk and then craft our email. So once we have the header already copied, what we'll do is go into the email itself, and we will right click and then copy link. Now this is a little dangerous in order to do this the way that I did it. What I would suggest that you do is in some Outlook versions, I don't know why mine is being a diva, if we open an investigations folder, you could drag out the email itself and pop it down in a folder. For some reason, again, mine doesn't do that, so we'll right click it, we'll say save as, and then we'll say keep, and then we'll go into our downloads. We'll see that it's there, and then we'll go to our investigation folder, copy it here. And then if we want, we can right click this, copy it, go into our lab, let's delete that, and then paste it. So if we open the email, and because Outlook isn't on here, it's going to be a bit of a diva. Normally, if you have Outlook already installed on it, it would probably open. I haven't fully set up this lab, and I'll be demoing the lab in later videos. But let's just move on from copying the link from the email itself. And then what we'll do is we'll jet back into the lab. So now we see that the URL is Twitter. Let's take a look at We'll do a redirect test first. And in this case, what we'll do is we'll pop this in, and then we will also take a screenshot of where it redirects to. So you see the redirect is this domain here. So we'll take a screenshot of pretty much from the top here to where it goes there. We could even include the headers if we need to. In this case, we're just going to grab the domain itself. We're going to copy it. We'll head to VirusTotal first. And then we'll paste the URL into VirusTotal. And now this is kind of a good thing, because I'm going to show you two different things you need to take into consideration. The first is if this comes back as clean, what we'll do is we'll chop off the URL itself and hit the domain. If this also comes back clean, you will end up taking the photographs of this. But additionally, what you're going to do is go to the site itself to determine what type of campaign this is. And in this case, it's American Express phishing. And then once we identified the campaign, we could kind of go back to our notes and we could probably enter American Express phishing. So again, we'll take screenshots of this. We'll also copy the URL. We will also bring this into IBM X-Force. And we'll try to determine if in the event that IBM X-Force sees anything suspect about this. You can see in the Whois record, it was created just this month. And it's got privacy protect, so again, that's another area of sus. What we could also do is we could attempt to... Whoops. We could attempt to ping this Xanax Popcorn, whatever the hell they want to call this URL, from the host that we're in here. So let's skedaddle down there. We see we got a 104 address. You can take a picture of this too. It's not imperative that you do. And then we'll go back up to IP void. And enjoy all the beautiful ads this thing throws at us. And you can see it's a Cloudflare IP address. So a distinction has to be made if you want to block the IP and the domain. I would probably go for blocking the domain itself. You can see if the IP has any risk scores associated to it. And you can take a screenshot of this showing that it's safe, but all the indicators go back to it being not so safe. Another thing that we could take a look at is if we walk the directory structure, can we get anything from this domain? So you see, they've removed the zip file. So we won't be able to download the campaign itself. Can we put together a Google Dork to find additional campaigns that might be similar? So we really don't see anything with American Express or the URL structure here. So we can't forecast any other domains that we might see from this threat actor. So if we head back, what we could do is we could take both of these domains And let's just, for the hell of it, invalidate them so nobody clicks on them, or make it practically impossible to click on. And we'll go back. Okay, so this was already populated. So we'll include this as and now when we start our Splunk searches, we're going to do something like, if we're looking to see if anyone engaged with the URL itself or the domain, depending on how your indexes are set up, we could do something like index zscaler or index pan, which is Palo Alto Networks, or whatever firewall that you're using. It could be Sonic Wall, and that would look like and pretty much we're looking at the URL, or if it's domain or whatever the name might be. Then the action is post. There's a clear distinction between post and get. If the user did a post, what they essentially did was they put their email address in, and what they did was they attempted to log in. This would be in most cases considered a post. Any users that come back with a post normally mean that that user tried to authenticate. So what we could kind of justify is post might need a reimage, get might need a reset, post might need a password reset and a reimage, get might just need a reimage. It depends on the policies that your company has set up. Some of the companies that I've worked for, post or get, if you touch that domain, you're getting a password reset and you're probably getting reimaged. This is also going back to earliest of 30 days. We're doing a dedupe on the host, and we're also tabling out the actions. Keep in mind that a dedupe on the host, whichever one comes first, whether it be post or get, that's what you're going to get stuck with. So in order to see the entire list, we could just omit that and table out all the results. The last thing that we want to do is look for the user or the threat actor that emailed our users. This could be O365. Again, it could also include O365, Agari, Proofpoint, whatever email service that you're using, with the sender name and the earliest of 90 days. And we're going to table out who received that message and the message ID. And the purpose of this would be to pretty much send that to your messaging team or attach to the ticket in CSV to show that this is what needs to be pulled, this is why I pulled it, and you're creating justification for it. So in the notes, you could say, email was received by multiple users, let's say in this case 15 users. It is in fact American Express card phishing. It's been determined that although the domains come back as safe, it is in fact not. Please see the attached images. Emails were pulled, domain was blocked. Users that engaged the domain from the initial Splunk search have also been advised to have the system re-imaged and have their passwords reset. And that pretty much wraps up the whole phishing email experience. And then if you want, you could attach the original email to the ticket. You could zip that up and you could put a password on it as infected and then upload it to any of the ticketing systems that you use. And you could just put in a message at the bottom of the ticket that you've included that, so if they need a historical, they can go back and take a look at it. But this would basically encompass everything you would need to do in order to do your investigation. Now, what we could also do is we could look for the user themselves online to see what's been seen with this email address. And it looks like this domain itself might be legit. Let's do a few quick tests. Let's go with virus total. And you could include some of the information on the sender of the address. So in this case, if we go back to the header and we look at where it was received from, yeah, this is going to look a little sus. So what we could do So that is a 141 address. We already know that this is suspect because we know that this is not in the States. We see that that's an 84 address, so it's dramatically different. Now, if we look at the 84 address, the 158, we see it's coming in there. So let's take this domain itself, head back to VirusTotal. Let's go to IBM X-Force. Get rid of you. So we see this is associated with spam. We see that this domain is associated with malware. So we're going to take a screenshot of that. At this point, we could probably also block this domain itself. Just for the hell of it, we also want to do a lookup on the IP there and a lookup on the IP here. So we see it's sending spam as of April 18th. That was 2 days ago. So we could probably go ahead and block the IP address. We could also take a screenshot of this to show that this is in fact corroborating what we see in the other one, an IBM X-Force. And then for the hell of it, let's try to connect to the domain that's sending us this crap. And if that one doesn't work, again, just for the hell of it, I don't advise nmapping the targets. Oh, this is interesting. Don't speak German that well. I wonder if this is someone's home ISP. Wait, what did who was record say? It might be. Let's grab this out just for the hell of it. Let's find out what this crap is. Oh, get over yourself. Somebody's being naughty boy on their internet connection. So it kind of looks like someone's using this from their own home, I'm guessing. Or maybe a business line, whatever they do. Maybe this is an ISP over there. But in either way, someone's being sus. So we find that out. We corroborate with that. And in our analyst notes, we can add all of that. That the original domain that they're using for the TPX is not what they sent it from. And this is all our justification. That's pretty much how we would handle a phishing, and in some cases, a malware email that comes in. We'll pivot and take a look at malware as the time approaches for that. But that should cover some of the Outlook. My version of Outlook is a bum version. I don't know what's the story with mine. That it's not. It's probably that cheap one, that EBT one. So if your version might be a little bit different, that you could drag the emails out, and if that's the case, then cool. If not, then I'm sorry, I'm using the bum one. But that should be it for the email investigations. going off of a day in the life of a SOC analyst, we're going to take a look at what Mac OS has to offer. So we can see in this screen, we've received an email from this clown here. And I was messing around a little bit before, so let's clear all of this so you get a clean slate. You can see that this clown from QBO with secure.net sent us an email saying that there was something wrong with QuickBooks. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to take a dive into this email and look at certain things. I've already gone ahead and downloaded the images that are on there. What we want to do from that is gain an MD5 from that image. And in Mac, it's MD5. In Linux, it's MD5 sum. We could take this and we could plug this into VirusTotal, which you can see I've been messing around with, and I'll get to some of the stuff here. So if we look at the hash that came back, you see there's no hits on it. We could also use an EXIF tool to find out, and that would be, unfortunately, I don't have it on Mac OS, and we'll take a look at that in Linux. See if that image has any data that we could pivot from and find out potentially who sent it. Additionally, we could do fingerprinting with the email itself, and that's the contents that are in this, but there's not really much to go on, so it might not be a full statistic on it. The next thing we'll take a look at is once we have a photo of the email, as we start documenting, we will also take a photo of this. What we would do is we're going to go to View, and then we're going to go to Message, and then we're going to select Raw Source. And in Raw Source, we're going to see something like this. And what this is going to provide for us is the return path if we respond to it, which I don't advise. Received from and the server that received the message. And then it's going to go to the server that the message is stored on, that they sent it to. And then finally, who it was for on the server that they specified in this location. And then we see, who's it from. We see the email to, and all this other stuff. So this is really small. So we're going to take this text out, and we're going to jump over to Sublime. So that we can see what the hell's going on. And I'll run through the header one more time. Return path is who we will be responding to if we respond to this email. X original to would be the email address they sent it on. Who it was delivered to would be the email address, and in this case the server. It was received from secure.net, and we're going to validate that information in a moment. And then it was also received by the server, where we received the email and the email address. So now that we got all of that info, we're going to copy out some interesting parts of this. So like magic, we're back. Again, we've taken the important parts of this. The message ID can be used if you're using something like Proofpoint in order to find the emails and have them pulled, just in case they are malicious, and in this case we're going to see if they are or they're not. And we're also going to start testing who the IP address in this location belongs to, and if it goes back to the same source. So secure.net has an IP address of 161. Things are already getting suspect. So if we do a whois on secure.net, one of the most suspect things is stuff that's redacted, but that's normally common for GDPR locations. Created in 85. T95 is creation date, so this has been around for a hot minute. The secure.net, which I don't think we could even touch. So we'll jet to, yeah. Secure.net is just doing its thing. So now we'll also take a look at the 15 IP address. Registration date was 21, so that was about 3 years ago. We will also take that IP address, ovh.net. Alright. You shut your mouth. So we see it's a cloud provider, and then if we do the IP address, check that. This looks like a sus cloud provider. Not the brightest guy. So they're saying this is a Windows box. Let me see if... Oh boy. We're not even going to get into talking about this because this is not the part for pen testing and what this really means to us. So we'll pretend we didn't see that. So an open port for mail or something has to be open for them to be sending mail from it. But I digress. So we have all this information. So secure.net, if we don't use this and it's not a legit source, then what we could probably end up doing is blocking this email, which if it comes back clean from even, let's say, X-Force. So secure.net has been caught with their pants down submitting or sending malware. And here are some of the other things you could look at. And this is, as far back as 17. So, things to consider as a SOC analyst. Now, nothing is coming up for secure.net. I would also scour the SIEM just to see if we've had interactions with secure.net. And if we haven't, then it's good to assess that it should be blocked. Another thing that we're going to do is we'll probably take the IP address of where this mail came from. And we will also run this through IBM X-Force. We'll run this through VirusTotal as well. And we will also run this through IP Void. And any of the other tools that you might have that you think would be good to run this IP address through. Yeah, tomorrow. So you see it's clean there. You see that we have a 1 of 94. One risk with this. And now what we're going to do is go back to the email. And what I would be looking for would be, let's get everything nice and cute. So this link is going to dupe people into clicking it because if you know how a link comes together, I'm not going to go into detail, you could make a link look like almost anything. And we see that this is going to Twitter. So we're going to copy this, take it, run it through a redirect check, and then we see that we do have a redirect that goes to this address. Talk about extreme close-up. So we're going to take this address and we're going to go back to VirusTotal. Hey, shut up, Microsoft. And we'll do this. And we'll also take a screenshot of this and a screenshot of all the other data that supports our findings. We see it's definitely phishing. So let's get a little brazen and we're going to go to the website. And I'll include links to all the tools. And you see that it's they're actually trying to get into our QuickBooks account. So you want to play? I want to play too. And you'll see it's just gonna sit here and say loading. Other things to consider when you're looking at phishing sites would be, you see some of the links that work. That's great and all. So we'll go back and pop that domain in again. Create an account doesn't do anything. Try something else doesn't do anything either. But everything else works. And this sometimes is a telltale sign, and if the URL doesn't scream it out, I don't know what will. So now the next stop that we're going to end up doing is pretty much going to, if we want to get crazy, we could load the developer tools. Just do it. And we can try to gun for any post data. And I'm probably going to skip over it because the font is too small. Here we go. So forms action, and it's going to go to this PHP script. So we could copy this PHP script. We could try to be cute and go to it. And you see this crap. So now what we could do is look for, we're going to take this domain. Oh, Bhutanatsokola. We're going to take this domain here, and we're going to go to a notepad. And we'll pop that in there. We'll remove that. And then we'll go to our cute little QuickBooks site. And then what we're going to do is compare to see if it's the same domain. And would you look at that? It is not. So now from this we have 2 indicator of compromise from the domains. We have a potential email to block. And we have the screenshots that we can take. So, what would this look like if we use Splunk and we need to hunt down these domains? So what we could do is leave URL in would allow us to put both domains, if I remember correctly. I don't have a Splunk license to mess around with right now. We could find both of these domains in one shot. So we'll go back to earlier 7 days. If you're getting this email and this email was sent, let's say, 30 days ago, the person was on vacation, you might want to go for 90 days and then table this out, take a screenshot, see who went to it. So what this is going to do is it's going to go through Zscaler. Now, Palo Alto may have a different set of indexes, and that might be index equals pan, and then it might be domain, or it might be URL, and then we could do in, and then we can copy both of these. Shut up. And then we can also do earliest. Go back 90 days. And then we'll do dedupe the source IP. Whoops. Actually, this would be, yeah. In this case, it would be domain and the actual time that it was contacted. So we could use either of these searches. We could also break this down and we could just do one at a time. So we can take this, and we can also specify in Splunk that we just want to do the one domain. And we could remove that. And we could also do wildcards at the end, just in case there was more stuff. We could try to identify it. But essentially what these searches will do is aim to provide who touched it, or who touched the domain that's malicious, and then ultimately we will go back, send them emails to do either a password reset, or we're going to re-image the systems. So that's what this looks like in a Mac. Other considerations you might want to make, and I don't know if I went over this previously, is when you have the campaign up, the attacker might be stupid enough to do index.zip, index.tar, tar.gz, and you could go down the list. I have a tool that does this. I can share that as well. And this basically puts together what a phishing campaign would look like and how you could kind of navigate and gain intel on it. I'll also be providing other links for this. Now, this is just a look at email through the eyes of Mac OS. We are going to be looking at, if we haven't already, the other operating systems and navigating those email clients as well. So at this point, we're basically going to discuss the end of what happens if in the event that someone at your company is successfully phished and credentials are shared or obtained in some odd manner. So I've put together a standard operating procedure for you that you could download, and if you work in the SOC, you could suggest this, or you could make any changes that you see fit and then move on from there. It wouldn't be the first time that someone's jacked my work and claimed it as their own. So basically it's covering a few steps. So revisions, that if in the event that the document's updated, the intended purpose, what it's for, its kind of mission statement. Account specifications are very important because there's certain people in the environment that you kind of have to cater to, and I'll get to that white glove bullshit later. Also, the process for the CEO, board of directors, VP account, all that other stuff. Tools that they either approved or are considering into the process and how you do your detections should also be listed. Sandboxes, if in the event that you have them, whether they be automated or if they're manual. Also, clean domains with known phishing and malware, how to navigate that. Many people coming into security might not know how to handle that, and that's something that I kind of want to bring to the forefront here. Another thing is the investigation process and how that's done. It might seem very long and daunting, but it's kind of maybe in total a half an hour depending on how the environment's set up. And I'll also be providing a suggested phishing investigation format that you could use, and you could tailor it to your needs. At the end is the environment search example. So if in the event somebody's working on their own, they have a process that they can follow where they just input information so that they can contain or provide details in the ticket that they've received so that the process could continue and you're not going to get hacked further. You could stop the bleeding at that point. So obviously you see the document revisions, all cute and nice. Intended purpose, that's just boring stuff. So we'll get to the account specifications. So any of the following CEO, board of directors, or VPs or EVs is going to be very high. This is, normally whaling or spear phishing, and you, in many cases, will not be able to directly interface with these corporate crybabies because they need someone on the team that's going to coddle them and tell them shit that their wife should be telling them, and it's just a mess. They're like the worst people to deal with. But someone has to deal with them, rather it be, I believe it's like client relations, something like that has to deal with them. Let them deal with it, cut the ticket there. If it's something that's extremely important or a high risk, then you should be contacting your manager, whatever time it is, and telling them, I got to start blocking because, VP Bozo decided that he was going to click on a link because this is how they are, most of them. And I got to stop the bleeding. And 9 out of 10 times, they're going to probably tell you, block the accounts, do what you need to do, and then we'll take care of it in the morning. Human resources is another one that's could be spear phishing and baiting. These are high-risk accounts because of the information that they have access to. and they love to download attachments. So you could get HR with resumes, you could get them with invoices, almost anything. HR is going to download it and probably look at it. I've seen email threads that were hijacked with HR on it, and they gladly downloaded and clicked stuff that we had to then go back and fix. So there's some information on here about the description of it and what that entails, and then obviously the employees, what that leads to. So the tools that we're putting together, and you could add to this if you download the document, I'll provide a link to it in the video description. Obviously, VirusTotal, IP Void, what different lists are. Domain Tools is a very good tool. Again, very expensive, but you have a really, really great set of historical data to go by. IBM XForce, Have It Been Pawn could be used in a number of ways, and obviously left blank for future updates. I will have to come back to that. So one of the issues that we have are clean domains with known phishing or known malware, and VirusTotal and similar sites are reporting that, hey, the domain is safe, download and install all this shit. Not true. So if the domain or the contents don't match, there's a problem. If we're on a site called twerkitbaby.com, I don't even know if that site exists. Now I'm curious. If we're on a site that says twerkitbaby.com and you see that there's an American Express login screen, or there's O365 logins, something is wrong. Scrutinize that more, especially if your threat intelligence tools are telling you everything is safe. More so if the domain is a trusted domain, meaning that it's a supplier or someone that we normally engage with. Let's say we buy lighting from lightmeup.com. These names are getting really strange. And we see that they have a login page with O365, and we've never seen that before. And it could be a problem. Whois information and dates that it's associated with can signal that the domain was specifically registered in a short amount of time to start hammering people with phishing. And if the domain was registered less than 1 year, approach with caution. Contact details on a Whois page are heavily redacted. Normally we see this because of GDPR. Threat actors decided that they were going to use the same thing, and guess what happened? They started doing the same thing. I mean, I don't blame them. So what we'd want to look at is if the sender of the domain or URL is associated with this domain. Is it a vendor? Is it an external partner? Is it a contractor? Was the email source seen before? This is a really big indicator, because if there's previous tickets that are associated with this email address, and many times they'll register aliases for emails, you might want to drop your guard on some of that. Other times it's worth more to investigate. And also, were those tickets marked as malware and phishing? That's going to help you kind of navigate that. Considerations to make when you're blocking, especially when you're using something like Zscaler. If you see it's a trustedvendor.com and it's just a malicious URL that points to HTML, PHP, ASPX, or EXE, whatever the case is, these two URLs can't be blocked, and it's a risk that you take. Sometimes you might do a temporary block and put that in a ticket, but when you're working at bigger corporations, it becomes a bigger headache. If, in fact, it's malicious subdomain at trustedvendor.com, in Zscaler, you can use a dot in front of the subdomain to only block this subdomain rather than the entire domain. So that's something you want to take into consideration as well. So your investigation process is going to be broken down into a few different segments. So once the mail is received, we want to take a screenshot of the mail, and we want to put that in the ticket. This is for the historical, just in case you don't attach the email or the original email to your ticketing system, or you're not allowed to for whatever reasons. If there are attachments in the email, we want to take pictures of the attachments while they are in the email. We don't want to pull them out. I've seen an analyst infect his machine while he was trying to do this, and then he just didn't want to do investigations further because he was afraid he was going to infect his machine again. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at the sender, the reply to, the envelope ID, and where the domain for the email came from, and the IP address that it's associated with. This will help us understand if it was spoofed, and also who the recipient was. And this also goes back to who they are at the company, what they do, and if similar people at the company, let's say they're all VPs that receive it, then you know that there's a targeted campaign going out there, and you need to find out how and what lists they were exposed to. Now, when we investigate the email itself, when we're mostly dealing with the links and the attachments, we are not going to remove them at all, and we are not going to copy the URLs like I've shown you that I did on my actual box. You can infect yourself. Don't do that. Especially if there's a 0-day in that email or that link. Yeah, we don't want to do that. We want to put it in a safe environment. So we're going to upload that to the sandbox and then extract that data later. So again, we're going to use the tools that were listed on page 8 for all the investigation purposes. Inside of our environments or CM, we're going to do lookups on any of the indicators of compromise that we have. Email sender, reply to, envelope ID, hashes from the attachments in the email, the domain redirects as well. Do not only go to the domain itself, because if in the event Sally decided that she was going to click on the redirect and then all of a sudden her internet goes out or the battery on her laptop dies, that is an indicator that she would have engaged with the final URL. And if you have to do the investigation and you got to be inconvenienced on her clicking on it, then she's got to be inconvenienced in finding and remembering a new password. Too bad. So now you also want to look up the users on Have I Been Pawned who've received it, and you want to do that on the list that is essentially returned from either Proofpoint, O365, Agari, or whatever email you're using, and see if they were exposed, how long ago they were exposed, were those emails ever changed, will they change in Active Directory since it made it to that list? Because if they haven't, then credential stuffing becomes a thing, and it's even a bigger headache if you don't have multi-factor enabled. I'm not even getting into that. Also look up the threat actor, because chances are they're using a jacked email that they found in a database that they were able to log into, and to escape detection they're using that. So your investigation could kind of include, well, you know, James was jacked back in 2012, never changed his password, and here we are now. Another thing that you could do is remove the sender's domain from their email name and start scrutinizing the domain, and you want to do this for a number of reasons. If it's a new domain, you want to find out when it was registered, what the risk score of it is, and you also want to see if that source where the email was, or the email has originated from, matches the domain in the user. You want to look that up. You might want to also do some NS lookups to see if the MX records also match, because sometimes MX records might point somewhere else. Investigating attachments is also important. Again, we don't want to pull them out on the desktop. We want to either upload them to a sandbox, or we want to upload them to a manual sandbox so we could investigate them. Attachments, you're going to kind of either want to run them through strings if they're binaries, and then I'll show you at a later time, to see if you could extract any indicators of compromise like IP addresses, domains, hashes, and anything else that might be buried in that executable that you could then use to block. PDFs normally have URLs inside of them that they try to get you to go to a website and do some stuff. If it's an HTML file, it's going to be pointing at an online domain. It might not be evident at that point. So when they authenticate to that file on their desktop, they're actually forwarding those credentials to the malicious domain itself, well, the phishing domain itself. So if we upload to a sandbox, we want to make sure we know what the magic number is. Again, I will cover that in malware analysis. But we want to know that the IMG file or the PNG file is in fact a PNG or picture file. Many times malware authors will use helper programs to rename the actual malware to infect. So it goes from .png to .exe, and then the infection process starts. You also want to obtain the hashes from any of them and navigate to any of the URLs in a safe environment to determine what they are and any risk scores. If you can extract EXIF data from images, do so. That might give you a username that you can pivot for OSINT later on, and that's going to be a little outside the scope of this. Hunting in your environment, hashes that you could normally look up on network firewalls if you're logging that at the firewall. Endpoint protection is another one, like Carbon Crap. CrowdStrike is a great one. I love that tool. It has a lot of information, and it's integrated well with Splunk. Beautiful. Bit9 allows you to block hashes so you can see if the hashes were previously blocked. For email, you're going to be looking at Agari, O365, Proofpoint, or whatever other email providers you use or services. And that you could basically use any of the fields you pull from the header. More specifically, the envelope ID or the message ID, the recipient, the sender, all that stuff you could use, even the subject. And then finally, any of the domain or IP addresses you could block on, your firewalls, Zscaler, WAF, or whatever you use. So this is where it gets a little bit interesting, because the containment process is going to be what stops your environment from potentially getting rooted and stopping an attack at a surface level. So in O365 or similar, what you're going to do is you're going to block the sign-in, you're going to kill all the sessions and revoke them to make sure they're not signed into anything else. You're going to lock the account, you're going to kill the sessions again and revoke them again, and finally you're going to change your password. And then you could go in and change it again in AD or O365 to whatever you want. Don't leave the old password. You also want to look for any mailbox rules that were created, because sometimes they will in fact send out a shit ton of spam or another phishing campaign, and then they might add rules to block bounce backs or anything else. That can also be another indicator. Take pictures of that as well. Any of the machines that the user owns that that they clicked on that link, quarantine, whether it's been taken over or not. And also this is going to go back to the VPs and what level they are, because wah. Also, you want to review any MFA methods to determine if new ones were illegitimately added. You want to kind of revoke those. You want to send communications emails to the manager and let them know that the accounts can only be unblocked via out-of-band call, phone call, or message. We're not doing this on the computer. We're not sending an email. We're not doing none of that, because if the attacker is still attached to anything that end user is using, surprise, it's kind of like digital herpes. Pops up all over again. So if the endpoint of the device needs to be reimaged, you're going to include that in the email and the ticket as well. And again, I had to put this in bold. If the end user is a VP, an EVP, or a pain in the ass, you're going to kind of want to go through a different channel to have that system quarantined, blocked, reimaged, whatever the case may be. If it's late at night or it's something that's critical, you probably will get approval to do it. And wah, too bad. Other times they're going to have to wait for someone from client services to get involved in order to do that. Because, we got to cater to the crybabies. Basic containment of malicious domains and emails. Very simple and straightforward. So I've put together a list of things that you could use as far as the ticket format is concerned. So the date reported would be the date, let's say if Susie decided that she was going to report and forward the email that she received today, it would go on as today. The date received would be when Susie received the email from the email that she's forwarding. The reporting user obviously would be Susie, and then her position at the company. Is she a VP? Is she a user? Is she a contractor? Whatever the case is. We also want to take note of the report method. Did it come in through a phone, email? Was it a ticket? Mail sender is who sent the email, the subject, the message ID. And then at the end, we're going to basically do the verdict on is it phishing, spam, or malware. And also we want to take note of the threat category, because if we want to build out a historical or our own threat information, this will help us greatly. Number of recipients is important, because chances are Susie wasn't the only one that got it. We'd also want to take stats from our CM on who clicked the link and table that out. The domain reputations and the links that go back to prove it with pictures. Same thing with the IP addresses. email recipients and have been pawned, and also the password changes to support everything that we're doing and saying, and also the Splunk searches. I'm not going to go too much in depth with how to craft those Splunk searches, because each environment is to its own. So if you go back to the video that we've basically cut and we put together some of the Splunk searches, you could include that information there if you want. And I used to take the lazy way out. I would attach the CSV so they could look at it, and then any of the IOCs that were blocked and potentially where they've been blocked and how many. Then also I would tack on any whois information that I could find. And then again, with your company, you also want to create the environment searches for the analysts to use that you know are tried, tested, and true, and include them in the document. Because God forbid that you're working with someone who is very new and you get sick, hit by a bus, die, hit the lotto, tell your boss to piss off, you found a better company, truth on that. You could then turn around and confidently know that the next analyst is going to be able to do his or her job adequately. So that's basically everything I have for the phishing process. I will go more in depth with some of the tools and how to do an active investigation more in depth. This is kind of like surface level right now. And I want to show you what it looks like when you manually do this in a sandbox, and that will be the next set of videos that I come out with. So if you like the content, like, share, subscribe. It lets me know that I'm producing good content that you could use, and hopefully you're learning something. And I hope to see you in the comments in the next video.